Good morning, afternoon, or evening, and welcome to the Bloody Disgusting Network. The passage of time will now bring you to something strange, unique, and idiosyncratic. Have a good time.
My friendship to all of you precludes my involvement with any one of you. But if you wanna make love, then I do too, and I'll be right there behind you. All in the name of oh, all in the name of oh, all in the name of oh.
Greetings, constant listeners, and welcome to another episode of The Losers Club, a Stephen King podcast. I am your host, Gen 2, the runner, Adams, and I've got to be honest, despite my clever nickname, I really hate running. I have done a couple of 5Ks and one official turkey trot, but I injured my left foot in the last bootleg turkey trot I tried to do, and now it's the elliptical for me from here on out. But that's not the case for two of the characters we're talking about today. Scott and Dee Dee have a great running experience. Of course, one of them is a pro, and one of them is slowly losing so much weight that he's becoming untethered to the ground, which I think would make a marathon way easier. That's right. Today we are talking about King's 2018 novella, Elevation. Woo! But I'm not alone. I'm joined by two fellow losers who also got signed up for this turkey trot. Jogging across the Tin Bridge. Dan, say hello and tell us, do you like to run?
This is Dan Castle Rock Caffrey. It's interesting because rereading this book, Flieger and I ran cross country together in high school, and I loved running in high school, and this reminded me of what a cross country race is like. But the older I've gotten, the more I don't like it.
Yeah.
I love walking. I don't like running. My knees always hurt afterwards. I feel like I can never get my breath under control. Maybe I just didn't keep it up enough. Susan and I actually did a turkey trot Thanksgiving of, I want to say 2015 or so in Chicago. It's like a big thing there. So I liked to run once upon a time, and now I like to walk, and both are good. I was a running man, and now I'm just on the long walk in life.
Nice. I like that. Yeah. And the turkey trot I did was 5 miles, but I think they can be various.
Yeah, I think ours was a little under 5 miles. I'm not sure if they have to be an official. It's like a 5K, I guess, right? How long is a 5K?
5K, 5,000 miles.
Yeah, wait.
It's like a
and
little
maybe it's
over
not 5 miles because a 5K, a 5K
5
be more.
kilometers.
Who knows?
We need our friends to the north in Canada who understand the metric system. I don't even know what system we are. That's my dumb American coming out. Well, coming up over the horrible hill, Julia, say hello and tell us, do you like to run?
Hello, this is Julia Trashmouth Marchesi, and I will tell you, I do not. I do not understand running at all, and I've actually had many conversations with runners to try to understand it, to be like, when your body tells you to stop, how do you just keep going? You just keep going. My body says stop. I go, okay, you say stop, I stop. But it seems like I have a friend hi Adam, who did ultra marathons.
Oh yeah.
So that's like
those
100 miles, right? And he did one once in a Chewbacca costume. And I'm like, I don't understand. Like my brain cannot fathom. So I think I have all the respect for it. And it's something that I feel like as a human, I will never understand this feeling.
Yeah.
Ever.
I have a friend who walked a 5K but did it hula hooping the entire time. Like
Wow.
That's impressive.
She is a hula hooper, yes.
We used to watch. I mean, the Chicago Marathon's such a big thing, and I felt like when we lived there, every year we had a few friends who ran it. And it was inspiring being at the finish line and watching them cheering them on. At the same time, though, I never looked at it and said, "This looks fun.
This is for me. Like, I want to run 13 miles."
And isn't it debatable how healthy a marathon is, right? Like people fucking die doing that shit. But
yeah.
But I would like to know this feeling once in my life, right? It seemed like this is what they talk about. This runner's
Runner's
specificity.
high.
Yeah.
Like, and I have gotten it a couple of times. I would always say, like, the first couple of minutes are like death. It's like your body, everything in your body is saying, stop doing this. This is bad. This is awful. And like, even on the treadmill, I'd be like, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? And then it goes away and it does start to feel good. I mostly feel good after running. Like my body feels better. I don't always enjoy it in the moment. It is nice when you can kind of disconnect and you start to, it's like an active rest, and you stop thinking about your feet, But I don't know. At this point, I'm like, fuck it. Like, we tried to do, my neighbor threw together a turkey trot in our neighborhood and just like put 3 cups of water on the ground at like around the midway point or something. And that's when I hurt my foot, and it still fucking hurts, which is why I have my old lady slippers on because they have arch supports in them. So that's what running will do to you, kids. But listeners, if you like to run, let us know if you can explain what all the fuss is about, or maybe encourage us to give it a go again. Although I don't know, I don't think you'll ever get me into another marathon. Since we're running all over Castle Rock, let's jog on over to Derry and take a pit stop in the library. That's where I hear all the Gatorade is.
Mike Hanlon, if you see...
Excuse me, sir. Do you have Prince Albert in a can? You do? Well, you better let the poor guy out.
Yeah, Mike Hanlon, that I had to go, that I had to get cleaned up. Tell him I'll see him tonight.
Get out! Last chance, Doja. Get out! Get out! Excuse me, man.
All right, so let's talk about this book, Elevation. King announced the book in an interview with Entertainment Weekly. After discussing Wendy's button box, King says, "Now I've written another novella called Elevation, which is also a Castle Rock story, and in some ways it's almost like a sequel to Gwendy. Sometimes you seed the ground and you get a little fertilizer and things turn out," which reminds me of Jeff Goldblum on Friends talking about planting seeds and watching them grow. But what do we think? Does this feel like a sequel to Gwendy? And we've all three read all the Gwendy books, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Julia, what do you think? Sequel to Gwendy?
I hadn't thought about it until you said so. I mean, I realized when there was the mention of the suicide stairs, that's from Gwendy's button box. It's like, oh, okay, we're in the same universe, but there's Castle Rock. We're all in the same multiverse, right? So
Right.
I didn't feel like it had the same feeling as a Gwendy book at all to me, though. The tone felt real different.
That's interesting. Yeah. Dan, what do you think?
I guess it felt like Gwendy in that it's in Castle Rock and it's short. Here's the problem, though. It's been a minute since I've read any of the Gwendy books. I mean, Gwendy's Final Task, but that's so far removed in many ways from Castle Rock at that point.
Yeah.
So I was trying to pinpoint if there are characters that reappeared again. I don't think there are, though,
I don't
right?
think
And I
so.
didn't. I mean, there's a little bit of King's Dominion that we'll get to in that category, but I don't even think we were getting more famous Castle Rock characters at all from Needful Things or, Cujo or anything like that, right?
Yeah.
It didn't seem like there was that much connective tissue between the Castle Rock of old and this. Although I guess Castle Rock has been burned down and rebuilt by this point. But there wasn't. I don't know. There was. It's funny. I won't get too in the weeds of this because once again, I know we have King's Dominion.
Hey, this is a book episode. We get in the weeds.
Yeah, right. I almost wish he would have more references to the history of Castle Rock, substantial connective tissue, rather than just Pennywise mention, which isn't even a Castle Rock reference. That's just a King reference. I almost wish he would really, when he sets these stories in Castle Rock, especially because a long time ago he promised Needful Things is the last Castle Rock story. I wish there was a little bit more historicity, especially in a book this short, which I think could use some padding.
Yeah, I actually was listening to Uncle Otto's Truck today, which is another Castle Rock story. Because I am obsessed with Skeleton Crew right now, and listen to me defend it on our monkey episode, in which Dan tried to take it down just out of spite. I'm kidding. Dan had some very considered points. But yeah, even that doesn't necessarily feel as connected. Like when I think about Castle Rock stories, it's really the novels that feel like they are connected to each other. And Gwendy is, we read it a couple of months ago because we just covered it, but I think that was in the 70s, right? It was not a modern story, because the first Gwendy's button boxes, it starts when she's a child, and then most of that book is when she's a teenager or a young adult. And then Gwendy's magic feather, I don't know if that technically counts, especially in King canon. And then Wendy's Final Task is in space. So
yeah,
I think really the only connection here is just this is modern Castle Rock.
I mean, when I think of prototypical Castle Rock, it's the Dead Zone, it's Cujo, it's the Body, it's Needful Things. Well, because all those books had connections, like Ace Marilison, the Body, and Needful Things. Cujo opens, the first line is addressing events from the Dead Zone.
Yeah.
There's just this sense of continuation there. I guess that short story, It Grows on You.
I was just going to
think,
say, yeah, we do have that. And that, I do not like that story. Like,
people
that
hate
is
that story. I didn't think it was that bad, but yeah, people
boring.
really, really hate that story.
Well, we do have a Bannerman Road, so
That's
we
true. We get
assume
that's a good
mentioned.
point, yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
nice to know that they named it after Sheriff Bannerman. But
That's
they
true.
would like even a sentence about how they how he deserve hero who deserved this road to be named after or whatever, like something
Yeah.
to acknowledge it instead of just like a cat blinking no missed it kind of thing.
I
Yeah.
guess too the Bannerman Road is a nice nod because when I think about the town I grew up in, which it wasn't quite as small as Castle Rock, but it was a semi-small town that got developed over time.
Mhm.
If you went there now, I don't know how much history would be being referenced from when I was a kid 20 years ago,
Yeah.
or more than 20 years ago. So
Yeah.
like maybe it would show up in things like Bannerman Road. I think just because it's King and it's Castle Rock and it's iconic, like we want to see those connections and in a way that goes beyond just little Easter eggs here and
Yeah.
there. But, I don't want to say it hindered my enjoyment of the book, but yeah, I was thinking about that sequel question quite a bit when we were reading it.
Yeah, and I think this is such a contained novel. Like, there are really only 5 characters. It just doesn't really feel connected to much of anything, which I don't think is bad. If I had not seen this quote, I would not have thought of it as a sequel to Wendy, other than the mention of the suicide stairs. But I think when he's talking about seeding the ground, I think he just got in Castle Rock mode and wanted to see what else was going on in town. Maybe there's a new restaurant or something, which I enjoy. I always want to come back to Castle Rock, and I agree. It's like I think we want Castle Rock to be real, and we want there to be like history books that we can just check out and find out about all of this stuff, and you know, maybe someday, how there's the Silmarillion from Lord of the Rings. Maybe
Yeah.
someday somebody will write a Silmarillion of Castle Rock. Well, okay, so that is not this because this is a very, very short book, and the Silmarillion, I believe, is pretty long. So an excerpt and cover art were released in Entertainment Weekly on May 29th, which is pretty par for the course by this point. And then the book was released on October 30th, 2018. Does this feel like a Halloween book to you?
I
Feels
wish
like a
it felt
holiday
more
book to
like
me.
one.
Because it's like Halloween, Thanksgiving. We get Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas kind of back to back.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, uh-huh. Yeah, what
Yeah,
do you think?
it's kind of fun to get all of them, but also if you're going to release it right before Halloween, like do some Halloween, have a
Yeah,
Halloween scene. Like
Yeah,
he
agree.
mentions it briefly in like kids trick or treating, but I
3
mean,
pages.
because I know we've talked about Stephen King and Halloween on the show before, and I'm
Uh-huh.
always like, I need more. Give me an
Yeah.
entirely set on Halloween Stephen King book for the love of God. I would
Mm-hmm.
like die.
Yeah. Yeah, this one, I mean, this is the closest I think we've really gotten to Halloween, except for I believe there's some Halloween stuff in Under the Dome, although Dan, you've read that more recently than I have.
It's in the fall, I know. I feel like they're
Yeah.
prepping for Halloween, maybe.
And that's the
Under the
thing.
Dome.
It's not
Yeah.
about, and this story isn't about Halloween either. It just happens to take place in part on Halloween. So this just felt like such an odd release date, especially for this book, which feels much more like a winter holiday book. Dan, I agree with you there. And I wonder if they were just like, well, Stephen King, scary Halloween. There you
Yeah,
go.
it feels like such an outlier. I think because of its length.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking of books of. I mean, Gwendy's is still like I think twice as long as this book, probably.
Yeah.
Maybe not, but it's definitely longer. It feels more substantive. Blockade Billy, but Blockade Billy was like previously published and then just got its own special edition. Or whatever. It's interesting because this says a novel on the front,
Yeah, it does.
but then King described it as a novella. I know when he first announced it, which opens up that whole debate again, right? So
Right.
I think with it being an outlier, if it's this short and it comes out near Halloween, yeah, you would just, like Julie was saying, expect something that leans a little bit more into the holiday. I mean, we get that cool drawing of the pumpkin.
Yeah.
That's about it, though. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess we do get a little bit of Halloween on Cycle of the Werewolf too, but that's like one
it's-
out of
I-
12.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think because Cycle of the Werewolf, it's that whole calendar
Yeah.
concept. So you get, but that, maybe it's just because it's a werewolf book. That feels more like a Halloween book than Elevation does to me.
Yeah, and Elevation just, I mean, we're going to talk about it. It just doesn't, it's not scary. I mean, there are some horrific elements to it, but we shall get there. Let's see if the critics thought this was scary. Julia, would you care to read a little bit from the Kirkus review that called this an elegant whisper of a story, which I loved?
It says King delivers an uncharacteristically slim novel, just a hair longer than a novella, and one wishes there were just a little more backstory to give depth to Scott's good guyness. Why is he reaching out to his beleaguered neighbors, important in Trumpian times? It just is, Scott tells us, before he finds a memorable and quite beautiful, really, way to depart a podunk town made all the better for his presence. And it says it is a touching fable with a couple of deft political jabs on the way to showing that it might just be possible for us all to get along.
And then Dan, the New Republic called this perhaps the most uplifting of his career. Would you read a little bit of that review?
What follows is a wonderful collision of two very different plots, culminating in a third narrative strand that takes us to the end of the novel. But what do an oppressed lesbian restaurateur and a middle-aged man with an impossible weight disorder have in common in narrative terms? In one sense, it's about their common mortality. Gravity is the anchor that pulls us down into our graves, one character muses, mistakenly attributing the quote to Faulkner. That's funny. When Deirdre and Scott both run the 12K together. Oh, it's a 12K. Maybe that's what the turkey trot is.
Too many
Yeah.
Ks. Okay.
I know. They're both fighting against all the forces that hold them down. To escape gravity is to become free. Well, I like that. I like that
I do,
analysis.
yeah.
Elevation is the kind of story you could inhale in a leisurely hour. But for all its slightness, it is a rewarding and philosophically complex piece of work, offering both social critique and a meditation on how our different experiences shape our minds. It's an encouraging direction for a writer whose themes seem to be maturing as he does.
Which I think is interesting too. And I think if I look at this, this feels like the end of, and we're going to talk more about this in the hook, but this feels kind of like the cap of a phase where King is really exploring what death is. And I think a lot of his later writing has been more introspective than purely horror, especially if we're comparing it to early stuff, that very early stuff. So I had a hard time finding some reviews, which is why I only found two. Some admittedly were behind paywalls, and I'm just not going to subscribe to the LA Times. But then I found a lot of other self-published reviews or blogs, and there seemed to be a pretty consistent divide between critics liking this and constant readers not liking this. And I know we've got some people on the pod that are not fans of this. What do y'all think? Do y'all think this is more of a literary book, or is it more like fitting more of like literary King than the King constant readers are looking for? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's funny because I've been reading a lot of short novels lately by like literary fiction by other authors. I just read this one that's about Elevation's length, maybe a little bit longer, called The Most. That's oh gosh, what is her name? Who wrote that? Anyway, it's about this woman who was a former tennis pro and decides to spend all day in her pool.
Oh,
And I like Elevation. I should front load that. I don't dislike this novel. I think to pull off something that feels really thematically rich and nuanced in such a short period of time with such Spartan kind of writing, I do think you have to be a little bit more acrobatic than King is here. King, to me, has definitely pulled off thematic complexity plenty of times in the past, but I don't know if he does it in this short of amount of time.
yeah.
It's that thing, like, I feel like he can do it in a short story and he can do it in a novel, but a novella like this, I don't know. I feel like there's more. I get what he's going for with like bridging the divide, which also really also reads different politically in 2025 than it does in
True.
2018, I should say. And I'm not saying I have a concrete feeling about that, but this like, oh, let's just understand each other. I'm like, I don't know. Is that really what's needed or not? Who knows?
Yeah.
So there's that element of it. But yeah, I want a little bit more background on the characters, I think. I just want everything to be drawn out a little bit more. It feels like everything's done these broad kind of strokes. And I think you can do that and be more specific, but I think the writing needs to be a little bit twistier, a little bit thornier. I'm talking about the prose specifically, not the story beat. So even though I like the novel, it does almost feel like a draft for something that maybe wants to be like 250 pages, not 140 pages or whatever it is.
I agree. Slim comes to mind,
Yeah.
not ironically, Julia, what do you think?
The first time that I read this, I actually listened to it on audiobook, which for me is quite unusual, but I was driving to Las Vegas and it had just come
Oh.
out and I was like, all right, let's take this on our road trip.
And the
I
audiobook's
remember-
great. King reads it.
Yeah, and I remember really, really liking it. And so when I found out on this episode, I had mixed feelings. I was excited because I remember liking this book, but also nervous because of we're going to be talking a lot about weight, and that makes me uncomfortable.
Mm.
But reading it this time, I did not like it very much. And
Really?
my opinion really changed on it. And I don't
Mm.
know if that's because I changed as a person or what the deal is with that. So I was very surprised and I was like, oh no, okay, well, let's talk about it. Like, and we're going to get
Yeah.
into it, right? So like, we're going to talk about what, but mainly it's just, I come to Stephen King for characters, and I'm not getting character from anybody, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I don't know anybody's background. I don't. I feel like I barely get to know the main character. I need something from
Yeah.
someone, and I feel like I don't get that enough to make me really, really care. And I guess for me, as I also like that he normally would go into like, oh, why is this happening to me? Right. And this would
Mm-hmm.
go into like a whole thing that we just never gonna get in that place. And I was like, but you're never gonna, okay. You're just gonna
Yeah.
accept it. You're never gonna try to like discern what's wrong with you. Like I was like, okay. And then there's just like all the kind of weight stuff is like, to me it reads like thinness is enlightenment, and like the more and like
Mm.
and also the way that people treat him in this book and the things that they say about his weight. And I was like, oh my God, if somebody said that to me, I would be destroyed. And why is it okay for them to say that? And like he doesn't really ever go into that aspect of it, that they're treating him this way because he looks some way and then he's not that inside.
Yeah.
So a lot of complicated feelings about it.
Which is interesting too, because it's almost the inverse plot of Thinner, right? In a
Yes.
book where a book that's very nasty and also short, but does actually delve into some of those the sticky weight themes that you mentioned. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's funny because yeah, no, and I agree with Julia. I mean, I like I said, I do like this book, but I totally agree with the thinness of the plot, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because even even the ending, which there's some really beautiful writing with him taking off into the sky at the end. It's I mean, that's a huge deal, right? Like your protagonist is launching up in the sky, exploding into fireworks, so everyone interpret it. And I I feel like even just from a vague philosophical standpoint, we're not getting so much rumination around that. Like everything's just kind of ho hum accepted, and we go with it.
Yeah.
And I feel like there needs to be more of a struggle there for it to be rewarding in the way that some of these more positive reviews are saying it's rewarding. Like it almost to me, it almost feels like a nice Ray Bradbury homage than something I'm going to be thinking about. Ooh, what were they getting at here?
Right.
And I don't know. There's not really any. I'm just thinking about this now. For Scott, there's not really any like struggle or trepidation or worry. Like it's like he knows what's going to happen
It's
to
not
him the
much
whole
of an
time.
arc. Yeah.
Yeah, like I mean, I don't know. Maybe he knows something we don't about where he's going to end up, but he seems to just really accept it. And I guess there's something to be said for that.
Because I think that's supposed to be part of the point of it, right? Is like
Yeah,
the weightlessness. He's letting go of everything
Yeah.
that holds him down, right? So that's
yeah,
going to be everything physical, everything that's on his mind, which makes sense. But also that leaves us. There's no struggle. There's no him fighting
yes,
against it or him trying to like get help from it. Like he gets Dr. Beb help, kind of, but not
Mm-hmm.
really.
yeah,
So that feels like he's just, if you have a character who's accepted his fate in the beginning, then where does it go
Yeah.
in the
hmm
story?
Well, think about The Stand, right? Which is a
Mm-hmm.
very different book than this, but deals with themes of spirituality and accepting your fate by the end of it.
Yeah.
And when the four of them have to set out at the end, Stu, Ralph, Larry, and Glenn, there is struggle.
Jack.
There's like, oh, I don't know if I want to do this. I'll
Right.
do it, but I don't know if I can handle it. And oh, one of us fell. Do we really have to leave him behind? Do we have to be on this mission? There's
Mm-hmm.
conflict over that.
Yeah.
There is fear around that of accepting that they're walking off into the West to die. Um, not not to, I'm not a religious man whatsoever, but even you were talking about fucking Jesus, right? Like Jesus knows what he has to do, but he struggles with that when he's in
Yeah.
the Garden of
Take
Gethsemane.
this cup away from me. I mean, in the
Exactly,
fantastic
yeah, like
song in
that's-
Jesus Christ Superstar.
That's my favorite musical of all time. So
Really?
I love Jesus
Oh,
Christ Superstar. It's my dream. I don't act much anymore, but if some community theater asked me to be in like the ensemble of Jesus Christ Superstar, I
Uh-huh.
would do it. Always
Are you
wanted to do it.
excited for Cynthia Erivo to play
Oh,
Jesus?
is she gonna be in it? Who's she playing? Mary?
She's going to be
Or-
Jesus.
Oh, she's playing Wait, I didn't hear about this at all. Now I'm
Yeah,
excited.
I'm
Sweet.
pretty sure she can do no. I love her so much.
In
She's
a
awful
in a
fun.
film adaptation or like on,
I think on stage. So,
Oh, that's cool.
all right, breaking news,
Is it
everyone. Oh, I think so. It's either Broadway or LA, but I think it's Broadway.
Dan, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, well, you'll have to go see it.
I will definitely go see that. But yeah. So I mean, I think even in the most basic, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's not like the story has no conflict.
Yeah.
But like Julia said, it's not. There's no real conflict over the hero and his quest, which feels like a missed opportunity.
Yeah, and I want to talk, like, I don't want to get too much into structure and format just yet because I have a question about it. But I'm also realizing one of the things we like to do in our book episodes is talk about the first time we read this and the version that we read, because I think sometimes that makes a difference in how we enjoy it now. And it definitely did for me. I read this, I read it because it was before I was obsessed with audiobook. Well, it was in my audiobook phase, but I got this for Christmas and I read it in 2018. And I read it in this window when I had left my teaching job of 13 years under really stressful circumstances, and it turned out fine. But then I didn't know if the job I thought I was going to have was actually going to work out. And so I was in this limbo state, and it was the perfect time for me to read this because it was just so calming and so reassuring. And now that I'm thinking about it, there's not a ton of conflict in here. And the conflict in it is pretty tame, even though a lot of the conflict hits very differently in 2025. But it was just the absolute perfect time for me to read this book. And I loved that it was so short that I was able to just breeze through it. And it felt just really comforting. And this time I listened to the audiobook while I was at the grocery and I was done by the time I was putting them all away at home. So it was just like you just breeze through it. What about y'all? What was the first time? Julia, you said you listened to it on a road trip, right?
So I was listening into the car and I remember thinking that it was quite uplifting. And I see that, we talked to one of the reviews read about it being uplifting.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, this time not depressing, not uplifting at all. I was like, wow,
Yeah.
this is very sad. It's like watching someone die, of this terminal disease. And just like, that's the whole book of it, is this very like watching everybody watching someone die and like realizing they're dying and not doing anything to stop it.
Yeah.
And it's really sad.
And you read the book this time, like the
I did.
hard
Yeah,
book?
I got my copy.
Oh, sweet.
'Cause
Yeah.
I couldn't find it on my shelf, and I was like, "Where the fuck is it?" And I was
couldn't
like,
find it on my shelf
tearing it
either.
apart. I was like, "What?" Because I never listen to audiobooks, and I always I have all the books on my shelf, and I was like, "Oh my god!" And then I found a picture of me holding up the audiobook, and I was like, "Aha, aha, I see."
It's so
When
funny.
you listened on the road trip, was it just like done by the time you got out of the driveway? That's it.
Exactly.
Yeah, because Las Vegas is 4 hours away, so not
Especially
that
if you
long.
bump up your speed, like
do you
I
do
usually
that?
I listen
Naughty
on
girl.
1.4 with audiobooks. I find they're too slow. Like I need it to be conversational. But that's so funny because I listen to the audiobook and like I take my notes with like screenshots on my phone and then I sit down and I go through the book and I find them all. And I was losing my fucking mind last night because I thought I had lent this book to someone and they'd never given it back. And I was about to like tweet. I was like, I'm never lending my Stephen King again. I was like going nuts. It was on Corey's nightstand. I had lent it to my husband and I still don't think he's read it, but I'm going to put it back there. Anyways, Dan, what about you? When was the first time you read this one?
I think I read it just shortly after it came out. I just found a first edition at the half price in Austin. Yeah, and honestly, not like an especially momentous reading experience just because it is so short. I think I just read it in a day, enjoyed it, and then went back to whatever else we were reading, probably like Skeleton Crew or something at that time, right? I was wondering
The best short story collection.
Dan's
officially saying
I'd say
it.
the second worst short story collection of his. I'd go Night Shift, Just After Sunset.
Oh, that is a good one.
You Like It Darker.
Mm-hmm.
What am I? Bizarre Bad Dreams. No. Everything's Eventual. Bizarre Bad Dreams. Skeleton Crew, Nightmares and Dreamscapes. Am I missing any of them?
Does Hearts and Atlantis count as a?
Yeah, I would
never
count
know
that
if-
as a
I never
novella
know.
collection, I think.
Yeah,
I would
I
put
never
that
know.
in league with like Full Dark, No Stars and Four Past Midnight, I think.
Yeah, and different seasons.
Even though it's got
but
5.
I was wondering, wait, are we instruction format yet, or should I wait?
You know what? Let's go for it.
All right, cool.
Look at me. Look at
All right.
So
And
I
this is a
was
section we call structure and format.
I was wondering, I like the formats and the illustrations, a lot of white
Yeah.
space on the page, just a handful of chapters. I was wondering what my feelings about this would be if it were in a collection like Skeleton Crew.
I was
Because
thinking about that too.
The Mist is probably about this length, right? Is it
Yeah.
longer?
I
Maybe?
think it's maybe 15, 20 pages shorter, I think.
I'm kind of surprised it hasn't just gotten dropped into one of his collections since then.
Well, and I was thinking about that too, but I think it depends on the collection because I think Bobby Coughlin's Bad Dream, which is a similar length story in You Like It Darker, I didn't really enjoy that one. And it's not because it's not good. It's just I think it kind of faded into the background for me with a bunch of other really fantastic stories. And it's a little too long. Like I think if I was listening to it again, I would skip it, because it would be long. Like when I listen to You Like It Darker again, I'm probably not going to listen to Bobby Coughlin's Bad Dream just because there are so many other ones that I want to get to. But I was also thinking, because I'm listening to Skeleton Crew, I just listened to The Jaunt, and I was thinking, what's the one I Am the Doorway with the guy with the eyeballs on his hands? It's like, what if
Yeah,
we
and
take
Shift,
out
yeah.
if we take out the whole restaurant thing and we just make this like a sci-fi story?
Yeah.
There we go. Sign me up.
Yeah, would we be more interested in that, I think?
Yes.
Now, I think yes, but I also really love the restaurant thing. And I mean, I've got some personal reasons that we can talk about in a little bit. So I don't know. I think personally, I think I like what we have. And I like that we've got this really elegant little book. Like the weight of it just feels really good. The layout of the hardcover, I like the illustrations. I like, like Dan said, there's a lot of space on the page. Like it's breezy and it's nice, But I wonder if you were to put it in a collection, which one do you think you would put it in? I think maybe just After Sunset.
I was going to say the same. I feel like even though the title hints like, oh, these are such scary stories, if I'm remembering it correctly, just after Sunset, I feel like it has the most thematic diversity.
Yeah.
Maybe
and I feel
Everything's
like a lot
Eventual.
of heart too,
Yeah.
Oh, everything's eventual,
though,
yeah.
Everything's Eventual. I think the stories are pretty short, right? Aren't they?
Yeah,
There's
some
14
of them are. Some of them are. Yeah.
I would say
Can we,
just
can
After
we
Sunset.
can we start saying everything's eventual as they do in the story as slang for like everything's cool? Can we
Yeah,
make that
but
a
we have
Losers
to
Club
say
thing?
it. We have to say it like Justin Long, who reads that article or that audiobook and says everything's eventual. So yes, we can, but at a cost. This is what I'm saying. Well, okay. I don't have a ton to say about structure and format, but yeah, it feels, and sometimes King nails the novella, and I really like that. Like Rattlesnakes, I loved, and
Same.
I'm thinking, and then different seasons. It's 4 novellas that are fantastic. I think The Breathing Method is my favorite in that. And this one, it just feels like it wants to be one or the other. It just kind of lives uneasily in this middle range. What do y'all think?
I just think if you're going to limit yourself to so many pages, then I think that you need to focus in a little bit more, because to me, he's kind of skirting by the most interesting part of the story. It's right. Let's like if we're at the dead zone and Johnny Smith, yeah, he's got powers and whatever, but we're going to kind of like skirt past it. We're not going to like really talk about that. And I'm like, but that's the focus needs to be the focus of the story to me. So
Yeah.
I feel disgruntled as a reader to be like, you're not giving me the meat of what I feel like this story should be about. If you're going to be there's philosophical overtones, but I don't feel like it goes deep enough to really hit me with anything powerful. So I'm like,
Yeah.
if you're really going to get into it, let's get into it. Like you're talking about weight. You're talking about, do people have weight and do they matter? What does gravity mean? And what does it mean when you're touching somebody else and bringing them weightless as well? Like it obviously all has deep meaning, but I feel like he's not giving me enough to really play with. And if we're going to go sci-fi with it, I think that'd be rad. If the whole thing is just that discovery and exploration of what it is, that's what I would be more interested in, to be honest.
Yeah. What do you think, Dan?
Yes, I mean it's like I said, it's not that I don't hate it in novella form. I'm still satisfied from it being like, oh, it's like this nice little lark almost, But because it's not horror and because there are some socio-political themes at play, yeah, I just think there's a bigger playground to wander around and some more things to say that he doesn't quite get into. I think it would be enriched by some expansion, and honestly, not even just the subject matter, but like we were saying, the town, right? Like I would love to get more of it. What does modern day Castle Rock
Yeah.
really look like? Even that final sequence like I said, I love that final sequence. I think the writing is gorgeous, but man, I could read 15 pages of that, right? About him going into the cosmos or wherever he's going. And maybe King didn't want to, maybe he wanted to leave it somewhat ambiguous, but, and sparse, but yeah, I'm fine with what it is. I could see it going so much further.
Well, have either of y'all read Pop Art by Joe Hill?
Yes, I was thinking about that story, which is funny. That's shorter than this, but I feel like
it's hitting the
juicier.
themes. Yeah. Julia, I don't want to spoil it, but it's in 20th Century Ghosts.
Oh no, 20th Century Ghosts.
That's Paul Tremblay's Head Full of Ghosts, I think. It is my favorite short story that's not written by Stephen King of all time.
So
I cry at the end every time. It is so good. 20th Century Ghosts is a fantastic collection also. But I feel like as much as I do really enjoy this one, and I'm probably going to give it quite a few noses because it really hits me emotionally, I feel like that story is capturing a lot of what King is trying to do here, just about who are we, what is humanity, and what does it mean to not really be part of the world anymore, and to decide you want to leave it behind. And I don't know, I feel like King was inspired by that story here because there are a lot of similarities. We've got similarities to Joyland here thematically also. And it's been a while since I've read that one, but I think the ending is similar, if I'm remembering correctly. But let's talk about the hook in our next category, the hook, because it brings you back.
Ah, yes. Don't you see? Don't you see how clear it all is? Not only can you see the future, I can change it. You can change it, exactly.
Okay. I'm always going to make a Blues Traveler reference with this.
And I wish, like in the early days of the podcast,
we could use the real music.
Yeah. Oh, I would just drop in real music all the time, and then we had to take it out. So
and then we had to scrub it all. Yeah.
But I do miss those days.
Hey, that's how we met Kyle.
Hey, that's me.
We love Kyle.
That's true. You know what? I'm glad I not plagiarized. I copyright infringed, because otherwise I would not have met Kyle.
I do remember, because I was a listener back in the day when it was Tom Petty, at the beginning of every episode. It was a different time. Okay, so I want to talk about Naomi King. So I also want to be very clear. They seem like a very private person, and I'm not really seeking out the spotlight. So everything I'm pulling from is mostly available on their public-facing website also. So I feel like they are putting this information out. So they're the oldest child of Steve and Tabitha, born in 1970. I didn't realize this. They were born with a chronic adrenaline deficiency, which has caused numerous medical issues over the course of their lives, and they now use a wheelchair. Naomi also worked in the restaurant industry before becoming a Unitarian Universalist minister and gay activist. And you'll notice I'm using they, them also. I went to the Unitarian Universalist Church for a long time. And my pastor, or my friend who was a pastor there, told me he had met Naomi King, and I lost my mind. I was like, oh, God. So, but they got married to Reverend Dr. Thandika, who is also a UU minister and theologist. And they now teach embodied spiritual practices and yoga. And from their website, this is what I found. The website is Rev Naomi Body Spirit. After they spent years of their life unable to move without significant assistance or speak without an alternative communication device, Naomi learned to harness other energies to come back into their body and redevelop their voice. After this experience, they decided to train as a yoga teacher to share some of what they had learned with others. Embodied spiritual practice literally saved their life. As a queer and genderqueer fat disabled person, their family legacy and personal commitment is toward intersectional anti-oppressive community and justice making. Naomi is also a passionate cook, gardener, knitter, reader, and wheelchair dancer. So I know that we've talked about Eyes of the Dragon being a book that King wrote for Naomi when they were young. And after learning all of that, because I didn't really know much of that at all. I knew they were a UU minister and I knew that they were queer, but I didn't know, it makes me want to go back and read through another lens about how King writes about disability and how, connection to your body. Does that change how we feel about the story, knowing all of that? And does Elevation feel like it was written for or about Naomi? Julie, what do you think?
I didn't know any of that, and I think after you saying unable to move without a significant assistance or speak without an alternative communication device, I think living in a state like that would definitely make you think about your body in a way that probably haven't before, and I'm sure that he was there to watch all of that, so I'm sure it probably changed the way that he saw bodies as well. So perhaps so.
Mm-hmm. I'm also thinking, I did not look up Rev. Dr. Thandika. I hope I'm saying that correctly, too much, but they also seem to be, that they're a Black person and seem to be like a big activist for civil rights and examining white privilege. So it makes me kind of want to go back and see when I think King started to kind of change the way he wrote about that stuff too. I wonder if it coincided with getting a new daughter-in-law, Dan,
I
what
mean,
do
it's
you
funny,
think?
and it's hard to speak for Naomi King, right? Because they
Right.
do seem to value their privacy, at least
Right.
when it comes to their personal life. I feel like of all King's children, who we've talked about fairly extensively on here, he's written with the other two. They're probably the one who comes up the least, and so I don't want to pretend like I know what's in their heart or what's in King's heart about
Yeah.
it. But if I'm just going off of this very surface information we have about them, I don't know a ton about universality or Unitarianism. This does feel like a very spiritual book to me.
Yeah.
From what little I do know, right? Unitarianism is kind of about accepting.
It's kind of all, it's
Yeah.
like spirituality in any form. Like when I was going, we observed essentially all the holidays, and just
As
kind
this
of
book does, right?
exactly,
Three
yeah.
of them.
But like
All three of them.
we would like learn about Passover, and some people would celebrate it or observe it, and some of us would just kind of be there and be witnessing it, and then same with
Yeah.
Christmas, So it was very all or nothing.
Yeah, and so that makes sense, right? I would imagine maybe this was born out of
Yeah.
philosophical conversations he had with Naomi, or at least somewhat influenced by their beliefs. But like I said, it's funny, and this isn't his fault for back when he wrote it. But once again, I don't want to sound like, oh, I hate anyone who voted for Trump and Republicans. I want them to die or something like that. But we are in this. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about this. I don't. There's at least debate over, should it be like, oh, listen to both sides? Are we not understanding the other people? There's a lot of debate about that. And King himself is responsible for a lot of vitriol toward the other side. I mean, he recently just got back on Twitter to start
That's right.
trashing Trump. And look, I am very scared about what's happening in this country. I can't stand Trump, etc. It's not like I disagree with him ideologically, but I've always thought that that's just a bad rabbit hole for him to go down, or anyone to go down, to just go on Twitter and fire off anti-Elon Musk tweets all day. Elon Musk sucks. Can't stand the guy. But like, I just don't. I think that's just diminishing returns in so many ways. And so it's interesting to revisit this after our country has gone so far the other way in both directions. And King himself, in my opinion, like, look at the way he talks about Trumpism and just people with different beliefs in this versus Holly, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's so tempered in this book, and it's so much more understanding. And once again, I get it. 2025, much different than when this came out.
Yeah.
I mean, 2025 is much different than 2024 at this point.
Right, exactly.
But, I just can't. I guess I'm wondering, like, could King write this today? Could he bring himself to write this today? And I know the book is not about liberals versus conservatives, but Trump comes up a couple times, and the politics of queer culture definitely come up, and bridging differences definitely come up. And like, is that where he would go today? Maybe he would. I don't know. But that's so, yeah. And like I said, I don't know Naomi's views on any of that, but that's where I see the connection.
Yeah, and I think I don't know. I have a lot of thoughts about this because that is the part that stood out to me this time, especially, I'm not going to share too much, but I went to my first PFLAG meeting today. And so this is something that has been on my mind a lot recently. I've talked about this a little bit on the Lady Killers. But I find this more King trying to reckon with the world, the way the world treats his child, and the way the world with the way he wants the world to treat his child, and how he can do something to help that, especially someone with a platform. But even just like I remember reading this the first time and then hearing criticisms of it that it's just like virtue signaling the novel, which I can see. But I think that hits a lot differently in 2025 right now too, because I feel like I don't know if we need virtue signaling, but like if virtue signaling just means that people are being virtuous and they can signal to other people that it's okay to do that, then I think we need that. And I think for someone like Deirdre and Misty and Missy, sorry, that's thin characters. I feel like sometimes virtue signaling is like safety signaling also, it's showing I am a safe person. And so I think this feels like King exploring how I can be an ally in a world that doesn't really feel like it exists right now. And I think that's where like I remember reading Sleeping Beauties, and Julia, you and I talked about this on the episode too, where it just like it almost felt like a punch, because I was like, I wish we were still in this world, or I wish we still had this choice, but we don't, because the world we live in fucking sucks right now. So I don't know, it hit me very emotionally, and I am adding King to my list of famous horror people who have queer children also, which made me feel very, very happy. And again, sorry, not to go down a rabbit hole, but I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. But I think the virtue signaling felt very welcome to me on this read in 2025. And then there's this part on page 80 where he is talking about why he wants to do this wager. And I think this is where it came from. When I started to kind of connect this, he's talking about why he wants to do the wager with her, why he won't just leave them alone. And he says, no, it's because I'm going to die next year, he thought. And I'd like to put at least one thing right before I do. It's not going to be my marriage. That's kaput. And it's not going to be my department store website, because those guys don't understand that these stores are like buggy whip factories at the start of the automobile age. But those things, okay. And I think that's the end. But so I feel like King is kind of thinking about the platform he does have, and thinking about maybe some of the writing that he's done in his past. Because one of the things we've talked about in some episodes, especially when we talked about Scott Wood, or when we talked to Scott Woods about King's Black characters, I think he has gotten some stuff wrong. And one of the things I love about him is that I think he is willing to confront that within himself and try to do better. And I feel an effort to do that in this book that is very welcome to me now, because I wish more people were trying to do this. And if this can be an example to other people to say, okay, well, maybe I was wrong about some stuff, and maybe I can expand my worldview. So I don't know. That's my long-winded way of asking, what do you think King is saying about social justice with this novella?
Well, I guess I think if you put it the way you've put it, where you're saying, if he's feeling like he can say something that might make a difference and see somebody make a change, I appreciate that. But also, I don't feel like these Deidre and Missy really have personalities besides being lesbians and also being restaurateurs. Like that's kind of it. And even I feel like, okay, well then you should get to a point in the novel where you get past that front surface of who they are, and then you get to the real people, right? Like I'm a pansexual lady, but I'm also many other things, right? And like we never get past that first thing. So I feel like I feel unsatisfied with it, because like you're using, if I would prefer just have a character, like I don't know how to do it, because like does it need to be, there needs to be more to them than just that. But I feel like that's the whole point of it, right? Is if you move to a small town and that's all people see you as. So I understand that. But like when you get, I don't feel like I get the payoff of once you get to know them as a person, there's a different, you know what I'm saying? I feel confused.
I know what you mean. Yeah, no. And it's hard to talk about too, because I don't want to like impugn anyone's intentions, and I would rather someone try and not get all the way there than not try at all and be afraid to try. But yeah, it almost feels like this, like part of me wants to ask, who is this for? And I think it feels like it's for him, I don't know if it feels like a writing exercise, but it feels like an emotional exercise.
Shouldn't all writing always be for yourself?
I think it should be. Yes. But I think, I don't know. I wonder if there's just something, I feel like King is getting what he needs out of this novel. and I don't know if anybody else is getting completely what they need, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Dan, what do
Well,
you
yeah,
think?
I do think writing should be for yourself ultimately, right? And anyone who's saying it's not is lying. Like it's an
Exactly, yeah.
exhibitionist act.
Well,
Like
or you're not writing good.
yeah, when
That's not a good sentence, but you know what I mean?
I hear theater people all the time saying they're writing for other people or other cultures and this or that, and like yeah, it might be part of it, but like it's not why you started when you were younger. And I also just don't believe it. I believe it's ambitious. I believe there has to be a level of self interest for you to finish something, right? That said, I do think a genre or a thought experiment could come from, oh, I want to write something that sees the world through my daughter's eyes, right? Or not,
Yeah.
or however
Then
they
let us see it
identify.
through her eyes and not that make her the
His.
main character then, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know. Then I wonder, like, once again, I don't know, King doesn't even, I think, talk about them too much in interviews, probably out of respect for their wishes. So I don't know. Is Scott some kind of analogy for them, right? Or at
Yeah.
least the missions going on. And look, we don't know, right? And to
Yeah.
Julia's point before, whether he is or isn't, or how it ties to universality or whatever else, is kind of besides the point if your narrative isn't pulling people in, and that's going to vary depending on who we're listening to. Like I said,
Yeah.
I like this book as kind of a touching lark, but I think it could be so much more.
Yeah.
Julia does not like it because it just doesn't fulfill the what you want from a narrative, right? Like I think
Yeah.
that's also important to take care of in a book, even if you are being self-interested. You know what I mean? Like it's weird, like it
Yeah.
has to be for yourself, but as readers, we're gonna want it to be satisfying, right? Like yeah.
Well, and I wonder, I want to revisit a question we asked with Sleeping Beauties. And I think part of the reason Sleeping Beauties did not get all the way there for me is because I was asking myself, who is this? Who is the target audience here? You know, who is King
Yeah.
speaking to? Which I think is slightly different than who is this for? Who is this story
Mhm.
for? Who do we think the target audience for this is? Do we think it is the people that live in Castle Rock? Do you think it's people like Scott? Or do you think it's people like Missy and Deirdre?
I think it's people like in Castle Rock. I feel like this
Yeah.
is trying to show that Castle Rock is becoming more modern and less closed off because the thing about Castle Rock was always you're an outsider and we're going to let you know you're an outsider and that stigma is never going to go away, right?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's in every Castle Rock thing is about the outsider coming in. So I feel like this is a way like, oh, what if we accepted them? What if we're
Yeah.
okay with them now? That's kind of sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, because even, gosh, what was the last Castle Rock story we got before this? Gwendy?
I think
Was
it was
Gwendy
Wendy
before
yeah.
this? And,
Wendy was, yeah.
And Gwendy takes place like way before the events of the most famous events in Castle Rock. So if we're going chronologically, I think the last Castle Rock story is It Grows on You, which is such an ugly, hateful story in many ways. And
Yeah.
so, and like, yeah, I like that take that Julia has, like, oh, let's see it turn a corner, even though there's certainly remnants of that in this book with prejudice and everything else. Yeah. What is it? Let's take the darkest town. Well, I think Derry is the darkest town of Stephen King's canon. But yeah, let's take one of the famous dark towns he's written about and show that the whiter underbelly of that, or lighter, I shouldn't say whiter, but like the more positive I mean,
kind of
it's a white
applies.
place, right? Yeah. So
Well, and I think Castle Rock is deceptively dark, I think, because Derry, you can blame that darkness on it. But I think
Yeah.
Castle Rock, a lot of the darkness comes from just the people. And not to say it is an evil town, but it is a town full of human beings who tend to lean into their darker impulses or their darker sides or their dark half, if you will. Doesn't that has some Castle Rock in it too, doesn't it? Because Alan Pangborn is in it. I haven't read the Dark Half in years. Let's talk a little bit about Richard Matheson. The reason I bring him up is because this book is dedicated to Richard Matheson. I wonder if King felt it might be too on the nose to dedicate it to Naomi, you know? And I think about that also, like that would be a very public statement about someone, you know? But Richard Matheson, Cell is also dedicated to him. If you're not familiar, he is best known as an author and screenwriter of sci-fi and horror. His novels, I love I Am Legend. Stir of Echoes I haven't read, but it's downloaded on my Libby right now. Hell House, and my personal favorite, What Dreams May Come. Richard Matheson is a fantastic horror author, and if you have not read anything by him, please check him out. He also read 16 episodes. He also wrote 16 episodes of The Twilight Zone, including Nightmare at 20,000 Feet, which was skillfully adapted to Nightmare at 5.5 Feet on the best Simpsons Halloween episode.
It's funny too. Actually, my wife found a book for me. Bev Vin, I think, curated or edited with King. It's what's it called? I don't remember the title, but it's in a horror anthology, all of flight related stories, and they have Nightmare at 20,000 Feet in there. They have a Joe Hill story that's really good, and they have Turbulence Expert. Was that the King story that?
Yes. And Do You Like It Darker? Yeah.
Yeah, those are all in there together among a bunch of other stories. It's really fun. So there's obviously some, huge connections between King and Matheson.
Well, and Dan, there's a little Dan 237 also, because he also wrote the short story Duel, and later the screenplay, which is inspired by, this is such a weird detail, inspired by when he and a friend were tailgated by a large truck on the same day as the Kennedy assassination. And what do we know Duel as?
Wait, what do we? Jaws with a truck?
Jaws with a truck, yeah, and it was pre-Jaws, and I know you're a huge Jaws fan.
Oh yeah, I'm a huge Duel fan too. I watched it the first time a few years ago.
I've never seen it. I need to check it out.
Oh, it's good. It's really good. Yeah.
Well, Julia, are you a Matheson fan?
I have seen movie versions, but I've actually not read any of his work, and I will put it on my list. I feel ashamed to say that I have not.
I love it. I would put him up with Shirley Jackson for me, of horror, non-Stephen King horror authors that I fucking love, and also have made some of the greatest stories of all time that like filter through. Like I Am Legend has been adapted like at least 3 times at this point, I think. And Stir of Echoes is a really great movie that got overshadowed by Sixth Sense, but it's
we did an episode on it for Horror Movie Survival Guide. So.
Really? It's got dreamy Kevin Bacon in it too.
It does.
One of my favorite Matheson stories is Prey, which is the voodoo doll story that.
Ooh.
Have you seen Trilogy of Terror from the 70s? It's it's a TV movie. It's an anthology of 3 horror stories that are. Who's the actress? Karen Black.
Karen Black. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, right. She's playing a different character. The 2 of them are fine, but the third one is awesome. She gets mailed this voodoo doll that just runs around, tries to kill her, which is also referenced on The Simpsons with the Krusty doll episode.
Yes, Doll Without Pity, I think, right?
Where he comes out of the bathtub. That's right from Trilogy of Terror. I like Matheson a lot. It's funny. I definitely see the connection between Matheson and King in general. Like I said, I associate Ray Bradbury more with this story. I feel like Ray Bradbury has more idealistic small town stories than Matheson does. Although I haven't read What Dreams May Come, which I'm assuming is maybe somewhat connected to that, right? Or to this. Tonally is probably somewhat similar to this, with like its ideas about the afterlife and everything, you know?
Yeah. Have you seen the movie, the Robin Williams movie?
No, is it good? I've heard it not great things.
I mean, if you want to cry a lot and like question your being. I loved the book, and I can't remember if I liked the movie. I think at the time I was in a very codependent relationship, and I was like, I can't decide if I want to die first or if I want my boyfriend to die first. And I was like, I don't think this is a movie I should watch right now. But I read the book, and it's really great, and it's also based on a lot of research he did on the afterlife too. So it kind of reshaped how I feel about what happens when we die. I would highly recommend it, but you will cry. I don't know much about Bradbury though. Can you say a little bit more about the connections you see between?
I know King's a fan because he talks about him in Dance Macabre. Bradbury's stories are, a lot of them take place in is it Greentown, I think is his Castle Rock, his fictional town that's based on the suburb. I think he grew up in Waukegan. I want to say it's either Winnetka or Waukegan. Can't remember. One of the Illinois suburbs. And Bradbury's stories, even Something Wicked This Way Comes, which is kind of full on horror. Like Bradbury definitely writes horror, but it's never completely pessimistic. It's always tinged with this very starry-eyed view of the world. King actually criticizes him a little bit in Dance Macabre because he cites passages from Something Wicked This Way Comes, which is a beautifully majestically written novel, but to the point where the prose gets a little purple sometimes. And I don't think the prose is purple at all in Elevation. I think I would actually like it to be more purple in many ways.
A little purple more.
But yeah, it's a little bit more bare bones. But I don't think it's like textually similar to Bradbury. I think just this idea of a small town where very bittersweet, cosmically minded things happen. That feels very Bradbury to me. And like I said, maybe it feels similar to Matheson also, if you consider What Dreams May Come and maybe some of his non-horror stories. But when I think of Matheson, I think of the very like tightly oiled machine. Like I Am Legend, the book just moves like a freight train. It's just like boom, 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 boom. It's like expertly plotted, gets in, gets out. All of his short stories are like that too. So, yeah. So I think that's why I associate more with Bradbury, even though I've heard King talk about both of them with equal esteem.
Yeah, and I think both were heavily influential. I also want to say I don't love Something Wicked This Way Comes, although I will agree it's fantastic. But it has my favorite opening line of any book. First of all, it was October, a rare month for boys. It's just like, that's perfect. I remember reading that when I had the entire month off on maternity leave with my son, and I was like, well, that's for me because it's my month for a boy, you know.
Is your son more of a, or your son you were pregnant with at that time, is he more of a Jim or a what's the other kid? Who's the Will?
Oh, a Jim or a Will Nightshade. He's a Jim. He's the blonde, sweet, innocent my little baby. Still calls me mommy, even though he's 10.
Very sweet.
I know, and I'm like, Corey, don't you dare tell him he can't do that, 'cause he'll stop on his own. But yeah, he's a Will, or the blonde one. I can't remember. But
I just read Joey Pants's autobiography, and he never stopped calling his mom mommy his whole
Really?
life. So
really?
it can happen.
Oh, okay. Well, hey, and Joey Pants is definitely
Mommy.
somebody to look up to also, because he can do no wrong.
I'll only see him as Ralph Cifaretto from Sopranos, who he's so good, but like one of the most despicable characters ever on television.
He's always the guy in Bad Boys too.
It's either like he's playing like a sidekick cop or like it's a little piece of shit. Like there's no.
But he's always
middle ground.
essentially himself, which is he's one of the people that can pull that off in a lot of different ways, and fantastic. Kind of like Christopher Walken. You always know you're watching Christopher Walken. Well, Julia, what do you think? Are you Bradbury? And you already said you haven't read much Matheson, but do you see a kind of a sci-fi connection here?
Yeah, and I think, as I mentioned, going in a sci-fi direction is the most interesting part, would be the most interesting part. And I feel like if you go even further in like a Bradbury direction, which I think would be cool, or even a Lovecraftian direction where you're like, it is a cosmic thing that's happening, right? Something has come from the stars and this has happened because, he hints maybe there's something that this thing that's happening to him is a germ or a virus, and then they're like, oh well, what do you think it maybe could be sentient? And he's like, yeah, maybe. And I'm like, dude, that's so fascinating. Why are we not talking more about that? That's so cool. It's sentient thing that's doing this. Why you? What how? I don't know. I know you couldn't go to like John Hopkins and they're gonna fix him. Like I understand that's not the goal, but I feel like that part of it, like there's a sentient thing, there's an alien creature of some sort inside of him. Let's go into that.
Yeah, and I think like one of the other titles I didn't read was The Shrinking Man. So I mean, there's a kind of a literal connection to, which I've not read, so I can't speak to. But yeah, it seems like from the Matheson that I've read, and it could just be that my love for What Dreams May Come is kind of coloring this, because that is such an emotional book, and it's really blending emotion with this sci-fi horror element. That is more the connection I see here than really, because it's just so short. We just don't really get enough to really make a strong connection, I think. It's really just kind of the vibes. And here I really find King, I don't know, Matheson died in 2013. So I wonder if that was on King's mind as he started writing this. And he died of natural causes. So when he was, I think, in his 80s. And so I wonder if he was like imagining what Matheson's final days would be like, and if that was kind of what was inspiring him. But if he had not dedicated this to Richard Matheson or said, thinking of Richard Matheson, I would not have made that connection at all. You know what I mean? Well, Dan, you made another connection to Thinner, which is something I want to talk about. I don't know if there's a ton to say about this, but Julia, you're our resident Bachman defender. Are you a fan of Thinner? And how do you see this in comparison with Thinner?
The thing I like about Bachman is that he's mean and angry. And this is not that, right? This book is the complete opposite of that. And it's interesting to me that the more positive, uplifting version is less appealing to me, and I don't know what that's about. But Stephen King is always a bit tricky when he's dealing with weight stuff, and I know that this is a lot of his stuff, and as someone who's sensitive to it, I pay attention to it, and like this book, I can't look at it and not see that angle to it. And when I look at it through that lens, it's not a it just makes me uncomfortable. It doesn't, it's not giving me the kind of, like, what is he trying to, if we just look at it from a literal, like, they keep telling Scott he's fat through this whole book. You can't run this race. You're too fat. Like, look at that belly. You're too, like, they just keep saying it to him. Like, what is that supposed to, is there any sort of reconciliation to that? How about, we don't ever talk about any of that. And I don't know why it seems to be the focus of the book and not the focus of the book at the exact same time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. Like, to the point where I didn't even have that on my list as one of the hooks, but that is because it just didn't stand out to me this time. I think because I was very sidetracked by another thing that I was rambling about earlier. But yeah, I find Thinner, the more I read it, especially the movie adaptation, I find it very distasteful. I don't mean that as a pun, but like that's such an angry, mean book in a way that I don't like. And I agree with you. Part of what I love about Bachman is that he doesn't hold back. And I think there's a real cruelty running through all of those that I find really appealing. And Dan, I remember when we were talking about Blaze, I think you were on that episode, right?
Yeah, no, I was definitely on the Blaze episode.
Just a bunch of
I insisted.
Blaze being Blaze.
Blaze being Blaze.
But I remember us talking about how that book in a lot of ways felt kind of like a war between Bachman and King, And here I see, if we were to twin these two together, it does feel like the same story in a lot of ways, but this is the King story. This is who he wants to be, and Bachman is who he is afraid he is, and dealing with
that's a really
themes.
astute observation. I like that theory a lot, because not just because of the weight angle either, right? But Thinner, even beyond the weight, is just so, I love Thinner. It's one of my favorite Bachman books because it's so uniformly nasty and just doesn't feel soggy like something like Roadwork. Even The Running Man does. The book, not the movie. I feel like Thinner at the end, it's like just embracing nastiness on all fronts, and this at the end is embracing humanity on all fronts, right? So even aside from the weight element of it, and then I'm just thinking of it too, Thinner, because I said before it's like the inverse of Thinner, but they are both in many ways dangerously losing weight, right? Like, but one guy is embracing it and the other is trying to fight against it. But I think too, just hearing you make that comparison, Jen, it not just fighting against the weight, but like I feel like in Thinner, the guy is fighting against his true nature too, right? Like he doesn't want to think he's a piece of shit, even though he totally is.
He is,
like he's trying to like squash that himself in many ways. And in this, it's just complete acceptance and letting go from the beginning, to the book's detriment sometimes. But I really like thinking about them as twinners, like you said.
Yeah. Well, and I think the big difference between Thinner and Elevation, other than dramatically different tones and different levels of nastiness, like Elevation doesn't have like an alligator man, which is a fun part, or giant pimple man.
Yeah.
But I think in Thinner, you can see him losing weight, so it becomes a public, how am I engaging with the world here? And in Elevation, there's this idea that like, it doesn't matter how much I change, the world is always going to treat me the way the world is going to treat me, which I think I could relate to Missy and Deirdre also. It's that the world has made up their mind about me and it doesn't matter what I do. The only thing that matters is who I am and how I engage with the world. But that's also really fucking frustrating, especially right now. So I don't know exactly where I'm going with this, but it feels like there are a lot of really big topics that are touched on in this like really slim novel. Is there anything else we want to talk about with the hook before we move on? All right, well, let's
float away. Let's
float away. Yeah. And the next category, which is heroes and villains, is lots of times our most weighty. Like it's the biggest because we've got a ton of characters. I feel like this one might be a shorter one, but let's find out in our next category, heroes and villains.
I'm gonna have to kill this fucking clown. Welcome to the Losers Club, asshole!
I'm now also remembering the Beach Boys song that I used to play, and for this
Oh yeah,
also.
yeah. They sued us too. Well,
Yeah. Oh.
like Love came after us. No,
Oh man.
that would be funny.
I do really like, I mean, I like our clips too. And I remember I would just say, he's not a human being.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about Scott Carey, second cousin to Jim, although not as funny. Um, I don't have a ton to say about a lot of these characters, but what do we think of this guy? Is he an engaging protagonist? Do we feel like he feels real? Julia, you kind of hinted at your feelings earlier.
I don't feel like we go into how he feels about anything at all, about anything. Like the most humanity we ever get from him is that he stares at Bill the cat's bowls when they like give him away, right? And
Mm-hmm.
like I was like that's the most human thing that I got out of him. And I feel like even the like helping her up during the race, it like he made her like he kind of made her fall, like he startled her in this moment of zen, and if he hadn't said anything, I don't know, I feel like it's not, it seems to have come from a kind place to help her up, but when you made somebody fall in the first place, it feels like a different kind of gesture, I
Mm-hmm.
suppose. So there's a character that you could give him any sort of depth. Like I don't know anything about, like we know he's divorced, don't know anything about that, his marriage, nothing. Did he
Mm-hmm.
grow up in Castle Rock? What is he doing? Like I got nothing on him, and so he just feels like this blank slate. And is that on purpose? So
Mm-hmm.
that he feels like he starts out as someone who doesn't have a lot to lose kind of to begin with, because he
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have a wife or children or anything, like he can kind of float away without, like say he's single and it doesn't matter. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, and it kind of boggles the mind that this guy is not a writer too. Like, I mean, he kind of is. He's designing websites and there's an amount of content writing that goes into that. But this feels like the perfect opportunity for King to make this guy a writer, and he's got to finish his book before he dies, and maybe his book starts to become about the town or something. What do you think about Scott, Dan?
I don't dislike him. I just wish we had more.
Yeah.
I think about Edgar Freemantle, and what works so
Mm,
well about that character in Dim McKee is that we see this horrible side of him before he gets
yeah.
better, right? We see him at his lowest, at his
Mm-hmm.
worst. And so there's this kind of beauty to him finding art and finding grace and finding acceptance. Even though Scott in this is not an artist like Edgar is, there is an allusion to, I was not a good husband. I just think his journey in this becomes so much more satisfying if we see that all the darkness in him before this, rather than just getting like briefly
Does
talked about.
does he have darkness? I don't feel like he has any. We don't really ever see any of it.
Yeah.
I mean, it just seems like he's, if I feel like all we get to know about Scott is that he's dying, right? And
Yeah.
we know that from the very first second we made him, that he's dying. But who is he as a person? That doesn't describe you as a person. It's just something
Mm-hmm.
that's happening to you.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think like if the purpose of this story is to allow readers who may be more conservative or more I'm going to say bigoted or maybe more closed-minded to see themselves in the character and allow themselves to believe that maybe they can change and they can be better too. I think that the simplicity works, but that doesn't always make for the most entertaining read. And I think he feels kind of like a blank slate in a way that like
Yeah.
reminds me of Ben Mears.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's kind of like a cipher almost.
Yeah, and
Milk toast.
milk toast. Yeah, yeah. And I mean, I've given Ben Mears a lot of shit over the years. He's kind of my stand-in for like Stephen King boring characters. But I think about somebody like Bill Denbrough too, which clearly feels like a stand-in for King. It feels like King working out a lot of his own demons, and especially about writing. Do we think Scott feels like a stand-in for King here about how he's kind of dealing with his own place in the world?
I don't think, yeah, I don't think there's enough detail there
Yeah.
for me to make that connection personally, even if it was really personal.
Mhm.
And even in Ben Mears, and look, Salem's Lot is my favorite book, right? And
Yeah.
that doesn't have to do with Ben Mears. That I think with Salem's Lot, it's because the cast is so large that you're able just to like kind of put yourself in Ben Mears' shoes because he's a blank slate and go through it. But that doesn't work here because
It's just not enough.
or work as well because there's just not the cast. And so with Ben Mears, I wonder if Ben Mears wasn't a writer, would I make the King comparison?
Mm-hmm.
And so if that's what we're getting here, but without the writerly element, then yeah, I'm not connect it to King at all.
Yeah, and I would apologize for giving Salem's Lot shit, except you've been giving
There,
skeleton
yeah,
crew shit,
it's give
so
and take. It's a great
it's true.
universality of life, right? Yeah.
I know we're turning a little Bachman on each other here. Yeah, I think I don't know. This entire cast of characters feels like archetypes to me. Like I don't know if anybody really feels like a real person, and I think Scott gets the closest, but that's just because we're with him more. And I also love that he has a cat and that his cat is Bill D. Cat, even though it's kind of a stupid name. That's a very King cat
Oh yeah,
name. I was like,
great
I
pet
love
names
that.
from King.
hmm let's talk about Missy. So I have one note here, but I don't know. She just seems very sweet. I also think Missy Dandridge whenever I hear that name, Missy,
That's what I thought. Yeah, yeah.
mm, which is maybe not who you want to be compared to. Although I think I get Cinematics Pet Cemetery Missy Dandridge mixed up with the actual Missy Dandridge in Pet Cemetery, the novel, who she turns out okay, right? I think
Mhm.
she's sad, but like she doesn't die, I'm pretty
Oh, she
sure.
not hang herself in the novel?
No,
I don't
not in
think
the
so.
novel. That is
Oh, I thought she did. Wow,
Judd's
that's been a minute.
wife, because Judd's wife, Norma,
She's
is
sick.
not
That's right.
in the, yeah, exactly. So that's
Yeah.
the
Oh,
death
right, right,
that we
right.
get
You're
in the
right.
novel. I've recently read that a couple of times because I have OCD. What do we think about Missy? Anything really to say about her?
I I totally get the criticisms level at both her and Deirdre. Um, without going into too much detail, because I don't want to get anyone in trouble. I have a family member who actually lives next door to a lesbian couple,
Mm,
and or two doors down from a lesbian couple, who, and it's a similar dynamic. Like one of them is really kind of uppity and clashes with the neighbors, and the other one is really sweet and always apologizing.
hmm
Um, and there was actually a fence dispute, like this, like
Oh,
a neighbor is building a fence or a wall or something, and
hmm
one half of the couple was measuring it and calling the city about it not being, um, I guess, in the zoning limits, and then the other one was apologizing. So I just kept picturing them as this like I don't have a lot to say about either of them,
hmm
but I feel like I was kind of projecting this couple onto them. So I was like with it. I was like, okay, cool. Like I've met these people in real life and they're working for me as
yeah.
foils to each other. So yeah.
Well, and so I think that's why I'm connecting with Scott, because it feels like some stuff that I'm going through right now too. And I think that is the benefit in writing thing characters, is that you can project yourself into the story. But if you don't see that connection, or the connection is unpleasant, I think it becomes a problem, because then how do you engage with the story? You know what I mean? Julie, what do you think about Missy?
Not much, honestly. Like,
Okay.
there's just such a strange introduction to both of them because I feel like it's a very, they're talking about, oh, they're wearing real short shorts. They got those real nice long legs. Like
Mm-hmm.
which, and as a perv, I understand. Like when the lady's
Mm,
looking nice, we're looking, but and then, all we really get is like, oh, she's got nice legs. She's a hostess, and she apologizes for Dee Dee, but then like doesn't is like, oh, she there's a lot of things that have happened to her that make her the way she is, but we don't ever hear about any of them. So I
yeah.
feel like if there had been a moment where Dee Dee had really opened up and been like, this is what happened to me, this is the what I came here and people spray painted something on my house, or like or like what I had to deal with in Boston, or whatever it was, like to give more of her so you understand her. But I feel like I
hmm
don't understand her or anyone.
Yeah. Well, and I think I didn't intentionally start with Missy, but I'm glad I did, because I think without Deirdre, there's not a lot to say about Missy.
No.
She is the apologetic half. And so let's talk about Deirdre a little bit. I don't know, I do have kind of an issue with Scott causing her to fall and like stealing her moment, even though it does turn out okay, but it's very like, hey, old white man, can you just leave me alone and let me do my thing? And I think because we are with Scott all the way through and we know that his intentions are pure, it's easier to excuse that. But I think if we saw this from Deirdre's eyes, I would probably feel like I feel about Bill Hodges, like, leave me alone, boomer. You know what I mean? But how do we feel about Deirdre? Julie, what do you think?
I mean, I think unless if he had not caused her to be weightless when he picked her up at the race, I think she probably would not have forgiven him. I think that would have
Yeah.
been a whole different issue. But when she realizes like there's something supernatural or paranormal going on, that changes her mind. And I feel like that's so I feel like, she does bring it up a couple times. She's like, what happened there? What is going on? But I feel like that without that moment,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it would have ended up the same.
Yeah. Dan, what do you think?
I think Deirdre's the more sharply defined of the two for sure. And I will say I really like the introductory moment between her and Scott because you almost think they're gonna like each other. Just the way he's kind of describing her, and like there's that like I do like that King didn't take the easy way out and just make her as horrible as oh gosh, I don't know who's like King's like bitchiest old woman character. I'm trying to think like
Mrs. Carmody?
yeah,
I was going to say the
perfect
kid,
example.
but
Yeah, jeez, yeah, well, that would be weird, right? No, but like, yeah, I feel like he could have easily, I know I've been criticizing the book's lack of conflict a bit. At the same time, I like that he's working with people who are harder and or sharper on the edges in subtler ways, if that makes sense. I wish the follow through was a bit more, and I wish there was more meat on it. But I do like. I mean, she's not a villain by any means, but like the antagonistic character, at least the. Right, I guess I don't know. Would she be the antagonist? I know there's the guys at the restaurant or whatever, but like,
I mean, I think she's the closest thing to an antagonist for Scott that we have.
yeah, and
throughout the
that's an
book.
interesting choice for King to make because it's not someone who's a murderer or a rapist or whatever else, right? Or a
and
monster.
it's like a defensive also that causes her to close off.
I did not dislike her when I met her and I saw where she was coming from, and I like the point too that she brings up about him not being the most ideal neighbor, right? Like it's like, oh, the first conversation we've had is when you're complaining about me. I'm like, oh, that actually feels pretty rooted in reality. Yeah. Do I wish it went a little further? Do I wish there's more dramatic tension to glean onto? Of course. But yeah, I think it's something different from King. So I'm a Deirdre fan. And like I said before, the projecting the couple I am familiar with onto them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do really like the way that relationship ends up. I like that she is the one. Like, I mean, it's not a friends to lovers or enemies to lovers, but it's like enemies to family or something, know? And I also like this idea. I like how closed off Deirdre is. And I like that, like, she feels like the only one that really has an arc in this story, And I wonder.
She changes. She like actually has a fulcrum and nexus point.
And I like that him going to her restaurant doesn't just solve the problem, because I think, kind of going back to that virtue signaling conversation, like for all she knows, he's just another guy trying to like carry at the prom, maybe he's being nice because he's trying to, set her up for another disappointment, which is something I'm sure she's dealt with a lot. So I like she feels real in a way most of the other characters in this story do not. And pretty, I don't know, I have a lot of sympathy for her too, because I feel like we do really get to see behind this like really tough facade, And I think King is really good at writing that kind of stuff. And I think that's where I really hook into the story. What about Bob Ellis? Dr. Bob, not going to lie, I had to look his name up because I remembered there was a doctor in this story, but did not remember what his name was. Anything to this character? Julie, what do you think?
I mean, he seems like a nice guy. There's a sketch of a nice guy, right? Like that's all we're kind of
sketch of a nice guy. That's really funny. I mean, I'll say this, like, I think he's a functional character. He serves the purpose.
Yeah.
It is a little weird to me how he's part of like the gang watching it. Like, I don't know. He's the dude's doctor. It's like funny to me how he becomes family too, right? I don't know if that's quite earned.
He's touched your prostate, dude.
Fine.
But let's have dinner.
That's true.
I mean, hey, doctors are people too. So,
but also like, so we are to believe then that Scott has no friends. Right? Or these are the friends.
Thing. Yeah.
These are the because he mentions like, oh, he was divorced and like, the friends were her friends and like, but friends. You're just living with no friends. The guys you meet in town that you have an argument with at Castle Rock, like they're not really your friends. So you're just like this ragtag band, which is understandable, but I don't feel like there's the emotional connection that I feel warrants. Like these are the people that are going to watch me die.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think he feels like a character. Like if there were 5 more characters, I wouldn't have even mentioned him. because he is just kind of, I feel like he is a mechanism for Scott, to have someone to talk to. And he also gives us the medical side of this, where he is able to say, well, nobody weighs the same thing, or like this scale is a great scale because I'm a doctor, so he is, Dan, I think you said it, he's a very functional character without a lot of personality. And I think Myra, even though we only get a couple of scenes with her, and man, Castle Rock has had some great Myras over the years. This Myra, I think, she's fine. I did want to read one thing she says at the end. It's on page 131. And this is at their last meeting. She says, I was very foolish. I'm sorry about what's happening to you, Scott, but I'm glad about what's happened to me. If it hadn't, I would have stayed blind to some very good things and some very good people. I would have stayed a foolish old woman. I can't hug you, so this will have to do. And then she hugs Deirdre and Missy. The reason I want to say that is because there are a lot of people right now in this country who will not admit that they were wrong. And I feel like we have a lot of sunk cost fallacy. And so I really like that we have a character here who is able to open her mind and accept people that she was dead set against embracing. And I think even though this character doesn't really feel real, she doesn't feel like there's a lot to her, she feels more like a vehicle for this paragraph to come across. I do really love that she exists in the story because I feel like that kind of goes back to the hook that I really engage with. But what do y'all think of Myra? Is there anything really to say about her?
I kind of forgot she was in this until I saw her. I'm like, oh shit. I was like, who's the other character we have to talk about? I'm like,
oh.
So, yeah.
Well, let me just, that's my Myra soapbox, I will say. Okay. I put Castle Rock on this list partly because we have so few characters, so we're going to have some time. And, part of me, both of y'all have been on Character Corner before. Part of me wants to do a Castle Rock Character Corner and talk about the town as a character. How do you feel like the town is a character in this story? What do we learn about Castle Rock that we didn't know before?
I need more Castle Rock in this Castle Rock.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I like what Julia said before about the Bannerman Road, like this little, because I know I'm torn. On one hand, I'm like, I want more Castle Rock, but I'm like, no, I mean, this is probably if the whole idea, right, is like Needful Things was like Castle Rock collapsing, and then it grows on you as kind of the epilogue of that, and then we have Wendy's, but that's like way in the past.
Yeah,
if this is supposed to be like, no, the evil is gone, then this makes sense, right? Like, yeah. Is it once again, is it the most satisfying, gritty kind of thing? No, but we've also got that already in the Dark Half, Cujo, Dead Zone. I don't know if I need that. And the nastiness wouldn't suit it, right? Like, I kind of like how it's just this normal suburb, or not even a suburb, I guess, but normal small town. It very much in the 21st century with like, perhaps development coming in, a struggling restaurant not being able to survive because of politics. Like that all feels. I like that's just kind of a normal place now. That feels right to me.
Yeah. What do you think, Julia?
When I think about Castle Rock, I think about it taking place in the town, which I feel like this doesn't very much. We have the scene in the diner, we have the scene in their restaurant, we have the scene in the marathon, but I don't feel like we ever really get Castle Rock as a character. And he doesn't even really, like, he lives in the view, on Castle View, right? So he's like above the town. So maybe that's part of it as well. But I feel like when you for me, I have my book and I have my little, I highlight all the connections and I got my little sticky notes and I'm all very excited about it. And so like when you give me a Castle Rock, I get real excited. And if, every connection delights me, right? And I feel like there's so much room here to have a connection that we don't have. Otherwise, why set it in Castle Rock, I guess.
Yeah, and I feel like sometimes Castle Rock is just kind of dumped in, Like, I'm sure there are a lot of more recent stories that have been set in Castle Rock that we're probably forgetting about since it grows on you. I know Mrs. Todd Shortcut is a Castle Rock story.
I mean, I guess Rattlesnakes.
Rattlesnakes,
I mean, it's in Florida, but it's, yeah.
Well, and I think Grandma is too. And Grandma is the one that comes to mind, one, because I love that story, but also because, like you said, Julia, like Castle Rock is mentioned, but that story takes place in a house and it could be in any city. And I think sometimes King just kind of, oh, I need a city name. Is it Monton today or is it Castle Rock, you know? And so, yeah, I don't feel like we get a lot of Castle Rock here. Although I did enjoy hearing the Tin Bridge and the a couple of things we're going to mention in 237. I don't want to spoil that. But I think I'm going back to Salem's Lot too. I always think about Father Callahan talking about evil with a capital E and evil with a lowercase e, and it feels like old Castle Rock was capital E evil, and this new Castle Rock is more lowercase evil, which is not to say one is better or worse than the other, but I think this one just kind of feels a little bit more like a mundane town that's got some problems because people are human. Anything else we want to say about any of these characters? That's, and it's so weird because character is what King is great at. That's what he specializes in. And I mean, I think we could have an argument about it, but his horror doesn't hit without his characters. And so I think that's what he is really great at. And I feel like that is just kind of missing here in this one,
Mm-hmm.
And it's miserable. So let's go to our next category, misery.
She died. She just slipped away.
Slipped away! Slipped away! She didn't just slip away! You did it! 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 You murdered my misery!
Annie!
All right. I don't actually have any misery. I think we've talked about some of the stuff that doesn't necessarily work for me. And I don't like the mention of Trump, but that's, I think, a pet peeve, and actually like that it's not overdone here. Do y'all have any misery to read?
I think just like we were saying, the flaws of the novel, but the prose is pretty sound for me here. I don't take any issue with it. The Trump, I don't know. The Trump business, even though it's just kind of cringy to see his name in King's fiction at this point, it didn't bother me so much, I think, because of what the novel is going for about acceptance and everything. And like I said, it comes off a little bit more like oof now than it did back then. But it didn't bother me the way it bothers me in Holly and a lot of other novels these days.
Doesn't it feel like a simpler time, It's like,
I know, it's just weird to say, right?
I know, yeah. It's like, we were annoyed by this Trump in King's novels,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it was all pretty shitty still, but yeah, it definitely feels different than now.
Yeah. Julia, what you got?
There's a line near the end where Scott says, if there were rules to what was going on, he didn't understand them or care to. And I went,
but I care.
Why don't you want to understand them? Why don't you want to understand?
Yeah.
I understand you're letting go, but come on, man.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think as a parable for death here, I think I really like that I don't need to know. And I've talked in a lot of podcasts about how I found a lot of peace in saying, I don't need to know this. I'm okay with not knowing, and the ambiguity, it feels really peaceful. But I definitely get wanting to figure this out, if not for Scott, for the reader, what's going on. And I don't know. I don't know if I buy everybody else letting that knowledge go too, and I agree with you. I don't think they would force him to go to the doctor. But
also, like, think about it as if you know someone who is dying and they won't seek help, and they're just accepting it, and they're just going to stay in their house, and they're not going to, like, how helpless you would feel as a friend to be like, why will you not help yourself? Isn't there something to be said about just being like, okay, it's fine, out of my hands, and not what is the point of that?
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm thinking about when Carrie goes to the library and like looks up telekinesis. Sorry. Pyrokinesis is Charlie. And we just don't get any of that, like it. I don't know.
Even a research montage. Give me something,
Oh,
right?
man. Microfiche?
Yeah.
Well, we got a perfect opportunity here, Now, it's not going to hit as hard as microfiche on screen, but Jack fucks with some microfiche in The Shining, and that's really fun. So we could have done that. But there are some I'm sorry, this is the clunkiest transition in the world. On that microfiche, that was around the same time as word processors. So let's talk about the word processor of the gods.
We're gonna make a new rule. Whenever I'm in here, you hear me typing, whether you don't hear me typing, what the fuck you hear me doing in here. When I'm in here, that means that I am working. That means don't come in. Now, do you think you can handle that?
Yeah.
Fine. Why don't you start right now and get the fuck out of here?
I do have quite a few passages here. What do y'all have for word processor? Passages that we particularly liked.
The only one I wrote down, because I love it. I wish there was more of it. Is let me find it real quick. It's just the end where he's taking off.
Yeah.
Let me find it. I love where he's coursing past all the roofs.
Oh yeah.
He passed his bedroom window and saw the lamp was still on, casting a yellow stripe on his bed. He could see things on his bureau, watch, comb, little folded money that he would never touch again. He rose higher, and the moonlight was bright enough for him to see some kid's frisbee caught in an angle of the roof, maybe tossed up there before he and Nora had bought the place. That kid would be grown up now, he thought, writing in New York or digging ditches in San Francisco or painting in Paris. Mystery, mystery, mystery. Really beautiful, simple, speaking to the gravity of life, but also the simplicity of life. Just really lovely stuff there.
Yeah, and like the artifacts, I had that one marked also, and I'll keep going. Now he caught escaping heat from the house, a thermal, and began rising faster. The town disclosed itself as if from a drone or low-flying plane. The street lamps along Main Street and Castle View like pearls on a string. He could see the Christmas tree that Deirdre had lit over a month ago, and which would remain in the town square until the 1st February. It was cold up here, much colder than on the ground, but this was all right. He let the coverlet go and watched it drop, spreading out as it went, slowly becoming a parachute, not weightless, but almost. It's really beautiful writing. And I think, again, if I'm looking at this as a parable for death, that's how I want to go out, just kind of observing what you're leaving behind, but in a detached kind of way, Julie?
Yeah, in a way that's not like, it doesn't feel tragic. I mean, it shouldn't, right?
Right,
It's called
yeah.
elevation. It feels a little bit more transcendent than that.
It feels like just letting go, just kind of floating, I think, or becoming detached from the world slowly,
Well, I'll read you my favorite paragraph. And this is the kind of, if the book was more this, I feel like this is what I want from the book in this one paragraph. You could feel weight, yes, when you're carrying too much, it made you plotty, but wasn't it, like time, basically just a human construct? Hands on a clock, numbers on a bathroom scale, weren't they the only ways of trying to measure invisible forces that had visible effects? A feeble effort to corral some greater reality beyond what mere humans thought of as reality.
Oh,
this is what I'm talking about. That's what I want.
Yeah.
Well, and that is interrogating the theme, because you're right. Aside from not really digging into the science, we are making the connections to what weightlessness means. King is not doing that. And, I don't want him to look into the camera and say bombs are bad. Like, you don't have to spell it out or beat me over the head with it. But I feel like there's not enough for me to really know what he's trying to say. And that paragraph, I think, gets the closest to what he is saying about weight and being tethered to the world, and what does it mean to leave it behind. I have on page 131, it's right before the thing I read about about Myra. He thought he had discovered one of life's great truths, and one he could have done without. The only thing harder than saying goodbye to yourself a pound at a time was saying goodbye to your friends, and I like how he doesn't want to really talk to anybody anymore, because once he said goodbye, he's done. And, I've been thinking a lot about just getting older and what the end of my life is going to look like. I think just because, I don't know, I'm hitting that age, what New York Times or Washington Post says you age a whole lot when you're 44. And I was like, well, fuck you, newspaper. Anyways, anybody got anything else?
No, and like I said, I do think that actual sentence structure and everything is pretty strong in this book. Yeah, but that was what I wrote down, was the ending.
Well, I have the very ending, which I loved. And I think, I don't know if I would put this up at the top of King's ending lists, but I think the way this ends is one of his better endings. Okay, so on page 146, brilliant fire burst high above them, reds and yellows and greens. There was a pause, then came a perfect fury of gold. a shimmering waterfall that rained down and rained down and rained down as if it would never end. Deirdre took Missy's hand. Dr. Bob took Myra's hand. They watched until the last golden sparkles went out and the night was dark again. Somewhere high above them, Scott Carey continued to gain elevation, rising above the earth's mortal grip with his face turned toward the stars. Like, it almost makes me tear up to read it. That's just like, if that's what death is, then it doesn't feel as scary, you know, and that's,
Yeah.
and I wonder if that is partly a connection to Matheson, because now that I'm thinking about it, What Dreams May Come is really an exploration of what death is and what happens after we die, where we go. And so I wonder if maybe that was what King had in mind, was not necessarily Matheson himself dying, but just this idea of lifting up to a higher elevation, you know?
I feel like that's got to be the Matheson connection, right? Like what
Yeah.
it just seems like such an outlier in his catalog, and just from what I know about it, it seems to be the most aesthetically and thematically linked to this one.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm, again, not a Matheson expert, but I think What Dreams May Come is a little bit of an outlier for Matheson also. So I wonder if this is him kind of maybe trying to, maybe not overtly trying, but, or like intentionally trying, but feels like a merging of pop art and What Dreams May Come in a lot of ways, you know, which are two great stories that go great together. You know what else goes great together? Pound Cake and The Losers Club.
After all you've been taught, everyone isn't bad, Mama. Everything isn't a sin.
Come to your closet and pray. Ask to be forgiven.
He's a nice boy, Mom. You like him. You really like him, Mama.
Not the sexiest of stories, this one.
No, it's not. Okay,
I didn't have anything. Do you guys have anything? for
Nothing.
Pound Cake? Yeah.
I've got one, and it barely counts.
Just
But
like
it did
some leg pervin is all I got.
some leg pervin. Yeah, I mean, king gonna king, you know.
Sure.
He didn't talk about boobs in this one, I don't think, which is
He also did, you know,
anomaly.
they go to a Mexican restaurant and no shit talk either. No,
That's
and
true.
No one blowing out their ass in the bathroom.
Oh my god,
I appreciate that.
I do too. Yeah, I
love some good brown pound cake.
Oh my God.
pound cake.
Who did we were just talking about The Outsider, about how I kept having to hear about Jack Hoskins shit. I was like, I'm good. I don't need this anymore. Okay, on page 10, when he is hanging with Dr. Bob, I usually like a little bump and grind music when I strip, but since we've undressed together in the club locker room, I guess I can do without it. Which, to that I would say, I don't see nothing wrong with a little bump and grind when you strip. Wah, wah, and
Especially in the locker room.
Exactly. And that song's been in my head.
And that, folks, is the sexiest this book is gonna get.
That is the sexiest it's gonna get. Yeah, that's true. So we're out. No more pound cake.
More
Sorry.
pound cake needed.
Nothing.
That's what Julia says.
It's slim pickings in this one. Yeah. Well, maybe if we can't get horny, maybe we can get scared. Let's find out in our next category, the cemetery.
What's the bottom of the truth?
Well, sometimes that is better. The person you put up there ain't the person that comes back. It may look like that person, but it ain't that person. Because whatever lives in the ground beyond that cemetery ain't human at all.
And I also am remembering in The Monkey when we were talking about the cemetery, and I said, well, if we don't have anything to jerk off to. So I apologize to everyone for as filthy as I got in that Monkey episode, but you know.
But I don't think we do here either. I
don't think so either. Yeah.
I have nothing in the
lonely
in the cemetery.
nights, you know,
Yeah.
just full bottles of lotion.
Nothing in the, just staying there. Yeah, nothing in the expiring. I don't know if lotion expires. Yeah, I had nothing in Pound Cake or the cemetery, really.
You got anything, Julia?
Not really, no.
I think the concept itself is terrifying. Like thinking about weightlessness, like having something happening with your body that has never happened to anyone else on earth, as far as you know, and not having anything. Like part of me wonders if he refuses to engage with it because he's afraid to. But that is me bringing that. Like he doesn't say that, you know.
But when you put it like that, it does sound terrifying, right? You're like, there's
Yeah.
this thing happening to me and I can't stop it. And like human bodies are terrifying because now you're trapped inside this thing, which to everybody's outer point of view, you look fine. You look
Yeah.
healthy, like that you haven't changed, but on the inside you can feel this thing like eating away at you. That's terrifying. If I could get some terror from that, I would like that in this book, but I feel like that's not,
Yeah.
that's skirted around.
Well, and that's
He's
what Thinner
accepting
is,
too early
you
on.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It feels like there is no arc of acceptance here. It's like we begin and end in the same place. And I think if I had not read Thinner, I might find this a little scarier because Thinner is scary. Like it feels terrifying when it's happening there, you know, and especially like, even though I don't love that movie, just watching his face become gaunt. Like I think when he is going to the mailbox, that should be terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I will always laugh at people slipping on ice too, so that's funny. But
But I guess I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, you go.
I guess in Thinner, there's also to me, there's the social terror of it is that
Mhm.
they treat him terribly when he's really fat, and then there's a point in the middle where they're like, "Oh, hey, you look great. What's going on?" And then they get to the point where now he's too thin, right? And he's gone
Mhm.
past the point of societal acceptance. And I think the
Mhm.
terror of seeing that blatantly put out before you is also pretty scary.
Yeah.
But we don't get that here either.
Yeah. And that's why this feels so weird to be released the day before Halloween. And I've talked a couple of times. My French teacher, Madame Pruitt in middle school, used to have this tradition where on Halloween she didn't teach anything. She just, well, I mean, this was teaching, but she didn't teach a lesson. She just read us a short story. And for the 2 years I had her, she read A Rose for Emily and the Birds. And it was like the greatest day ever. And I was like, yeah, on Halloween, we should stop everything and just read scary stories. And lots of times, like, I would listen to 1408 because that's such a spooky story. And I just imagine myself, this is not what happened, but it very easily could have been if I had not had been dealing with all of my job shit. If I had bought this hoping for a Halloween story and I'm like, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to read this on Halloween and it's going to be spooky, you know, I would have been so disappointed because this does not feel scary at all, you know? But it does have a lot of King's Dominion.
There's another world out there. I know there is.
Okay. Who wants to start? We can kind of go around.
Let's see. I wrote down. I think I have two big ones here. Oh no, I wrote down four actually. All right, let's get this one out of the way. Hold on. Page 64 in the first edition. There's a band. The high schoolers went in costume to the annual Halloween dance in the gym, for which a local garage band, Big Top, renamed themselves Pennywise and the Clowns.
I missed that.
Oh, really?
What?
Oh, yeah.
Holy
that was like
shit.
That's
Okay. That is the one downside to audiobooks is every once in a while you miss something. Wow, I missed that.
Pennywise.
That's embarrassing.
I feel like Pennywise and 19 are like my least favorite.
Oh,
King's
okay.
Dominion at this
Now
point.
hold on. Pennywise and the Clowns is the name of the band.
Yes.
That is some Cujo chasing a cat and then Christine from
that's,
shit.
they're all clowns.
That's like might as
yeah.
well name them Stephen King in the horror or whatever.
Or
Well, he
Stephen King in the horror
can't just name
novelist.
them Pennywise because there's actually a band named Pennywise,
that's
right?
true,
So
yeah.
he's got to do something else.
Pennywise and the Clowns.
When he does say they're a high school punk band, so maybe the illusion is like, oh, they're kind of like they're a Pennywise cover band normally.
Maybe it's
or something.
ironic, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I'll say here. I'll let you guys. We'll go around the horn. I'll save my other ones.
Well, on page 64, we got mention of the suicide stairs, which we have already mentioned also. Julia, what do you have?
I have University of Maine, which of course several story takes place at the University of Maine.
Yeah, and you stayed there, right?
I stayed in his room, in
so
his dorm room. The coolest.
Where he made the cheery casserole too.
Where he might have written a long walk.
That's
he was
so
right. He was talking
cool.
about it in one of his essays, writing it in his dorm room, and I was like, I've been in that room.
That's so cool.
There's,
oh, go ahead.
Oh, I say 19 on page 72.
Yeah, her number is 19. Yeah.
Does that
19
mean we're supposed to reference something? I mean, I know it's a Dark Tower thing, but like, does that mean if she's number 19 is her number? Is she a gunslinger of this world or some sort of illusion like that?
I feel like the 19 is so overused at this point, like doesn't matter. Like usually it signifies bad luck, kind of, right? But I feel like it's just 19.
I don't feel like it signifies bad luck. I feel like it's just like Dark Tower or something.
Auspicious is the word, which I think can be either side. Like sometimes auspicious can lean more sinister or more malevolent, and sometimes can be more lucky. And I also think of Taylor Swift in number 13. She kind of reclaimed that for me and allowed me to see it as like maybe it's not always bad, you know.
Yeah, I feel
And
like it's just
It's just a like
yeah.
this is the number, whatever. Or like it almost is like King has put his finger on her as like a character of merit. I don't know if merit's the word, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Night
What about you,
Flyer.
Jen?
We got
We
some
got
Night Flyer.
Night Flyer and Inside View.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've got mention of the bandstand, which is where I think Frank Dodd, somebody.
Oh yeah, it's where he kills that one girl.
Yeah.
There's on page 93. There's actually a nice piece of writing. Maybe I should have put this in a word processor. He passed the marker and crested the hill. This is when he's running. Purdy's Lumberyard is on the right. Purdy's Hardware on the left. Just 2 kicks to go. He could see downtown below him. 20 or so businesses on either side hung with bunting. The Catholic Church and the Methodist one facing off like holy gunslingers. So, a little gunslinger reference.
I meant to write that down. And also it reminds me of, wasn't it Needful Things where the Catholics and the Methodists like threw down and like somebody like ripped somebody's nose out or something?
I think that's right. Man, maybe there are more Castle Rock references in this than we think.
Maybe I just need to read Needful Things again. It's been a while.
Yeah, me too.
I have on page, this is a nerdy one just because I've been reading a lot of old short stories. One of the chapters is called The Wager, and in The Ledge, we know that guy likes a wager. He doesn't call it a bet. Anything else?
I didn't know if Bill D. Cat was kind of like Mr. D in front of BOK. I don't think it's an actual reference, but yeah, it just reminded me of that.
They said it was a reference to the comic, right? It was a character in Boone. What is it? Boone? I can't remember it, but
I don't know.
Billy Cat is in.
He mentions it when he's like, "Oh,
Bill
that's
the
a cool
Cat.
name." That it's a reference
Bloom
to
County.
Bloom County.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, I got one more on page 67. He talks about 2 trick-or-treaters dressed as Hansel and Gretel. And of course, our most recent news is that he is actually working on a version of Hansel and Gretel to be released. I think it's later this year, right?
Cool.
So, or later this year or early next year, which I'm excited about.
Marie Sendak
Marie
illustrated,
Sendak,
right?
yeah. So that'll be interesting. It feels like a what is the Blaine shorts, the children's book,
Oh, Charlie the Choo-Choo.
Charlie the Choo-Choo. Yeah, it feels a little bit like that, but I'll consume it. Because Hansel and Gretel, that's a creepy story. If anybody's seen Oz Perkins, Gretel, and Hansel,
Love it.
It's good. I love it too. Anything else? Any other King's Dominion / Room 237? Yeah, I'm out also. And you know what that means? It's time to, I just mentioned somebody who ripped somebody's nose out. So let's give our nose rankings.
Dad, can we go now?
You ready?
Yeah, we've been ready for an hour.
Okay, I'll be right there.
You said that a half hour ago. Yeah, my dad's weird. He gets like that when he's writing.
All right. Dan, what are you giving Elevation? And I mean, do we have MVPs in this? I don't know if there's enough. Anyway, okay, well, let's see, how many bright red Pennywise clown noses?
I will give it 3.5 bright red Pennywise clown noses. So I guess a Methodist ripped out the other half. Yeah, I mean, because like you said, it's not like I find a ton of fault with what's here. I just want more of it.
Yeah.
And I think he is going to some thematic areas where he hasn't before. And that to me does warrant a longer book. Like if he's really exploring these ideas that are somewhat new to him, or at least new to his style of writing, I think that is like, okay, let's give myself another 100 pages to really go down that road and see what it means. Yeah, so I do enjoy this book. I just wish it went further, and I wish it had more to say in a concrete fashion than just flirting with the ideas, which is what it feels like a little bit now.
Yeah. Do you have an MVP?
Oh man, Deirdre, I guess.
Deirdre, okay.
But I don't know. That sounds like such a cop out. Like Deirdre,
well,
I guess.
I mean,
yeah.
I think all our MVPs are going to be cop outs here because there's not.
My MVP is the final couple pages.
Okay.
of him ascending. That's my MVP.
Julia, what about you?
It gets 2 noses for me. I guess I wouldn't recommend it to someone if they would ask for a recommendation. Because I feel like why restrain himself, right? I know that people talk about like, oh, his books are too long. I'm like, okay, well, if you don't want to read 1,100 pages of wonderfulness, then you don't have to. But I know you can. The thing about reading that is you're getting to know these characters so deeply that you really care about what happened to them. And I feel like if I don't care about Scott, then what is the point of reading it, right? Like it doesn't make me feel. It is beautifully written, yes, and that's what makes me feel something at the end, but it isn't necessarily because his character has changed or has learned something or I feel, connected to him, because I don't. So I don't have an MVP, and I'm like, these aren't characters that I connect with at all, really,
Yeah.
and like I'm a queer lady too, so like, should I connect to them? Probably. Do I? Not really. Like, they're just kind of characters I don't really care much for.
Yeah.
So I would, but I don't want to say it's badly written or not worth your time. But it just wouldn't be one that I would be like, you must read this.
Well, and it's interesting because I think we are so used to having the opposite conversation. Like, I could have lived without this, or this could have been a little shorter,
Sure.
especially coming off of Sleeping Beauties. And I feel like I keep shitting on that book. I did really enjoy a lot of that, but I feel like that could have been a lot shorter. And it is just rare to see King not really push himself to go all the way or to feel
And
like he is restrained,
what do you think the point of that restraint is?
I don't know.
Why make it short like this?
I mean, and if I were to put on my, I don't know, analysis hat, I wonder if this feels very personal to him. And I wonder if there's just an unwillingness to really put it all on the page, And again, that is just me completely speaking off of the vibes I get. And also, I have been very careful about how I talk about my personal connection to this, because I am talking about someone's experience who is not me, and it's not mine to share. And I wonder if there is a restraint here, because it feels to me like this was heavily inspired by Naomi. And I wonder if there is a hesitancy to go all the way there, And I'm not necessarily saying that is good or bad, but because I think it's human. And I think I'm going to give this 4. I think mostly because of my personal connections to it. I've read this, the 2 times I've read this book, it's been the exact right thing I needed to read at the time. And I think that kind of carries me past some of my critical faults that I find, because the feeling I get from this has helped me a lot. And I think, like, I don't know, I've talked a lot about what I see in this. I think my MVP is King himself. I was so happy to learn that there is another horror creator who has a parent or who is a parent of an LGBTQ child. I found that out about Jamie Lee Curtis, and it made me just love her so much more, and it made me feel not so isolated, and it made me feel like there are people out here who have been through some of the stuff that I'm going through. And so I really appreciate the fact that he wrote this and that it exists for me to read and see someone else kind of struggling with that also, and trying to figure out who you want to be for other people in the world, even when it's not totally your story. And yeah, so King himself is my MVP for this. And I think, again, I agree with both of you. I think this is not a perfect book, and I might recommend it for some specific people in my life. And I think it's a feel good story. If you want a schmaltzy story, this almost feels like a Hallmark movie. If
It doesn't make me feel good at all, man. This book makes me feel terrible.
Oh, that's
it makes me feel
right.
terrible. So
Really?
like, it doesn't. I don't see the uplifting nature of it. Like, I can see it logically and like from a distance academic standpoint, I can see what I'm supposed to see, but I don't feel that way about it at all.
That's so fascinating, because for me, I'm like, but you know what? That's a completely valid read of it too, and that's why I'm glad that we are talking about it too, because, and to me, I think when we can have such like opposite experiences reading this too, it either tells me there's not a lot there, or there is more than we think there, and I'm not totally sure where I land on that. But that's Elevation. It's I think we've spent almost as much time talking about it as it would take to read it out loud. So, I think we've done it justice. Julia, where can listeners find you online and what do you have coming up? You said you have an episode of Stir of Echoes also, right?
For Horror Movie Survival Guide, yes, we do. And then, of course, a billion Stephen King movie episodes. So you can check out
Of
that
course.
podcast. I also have other podcast called Jodorowsky, which is all about Alejandro Jodorowsky and his works. That we have a comic episode coming out pretty soon. And I am Julia C. Marchesi on all of the things, and have some other projects waiting in the wings that I can be talking about pretty soon. That
That's
might
exciting.
be related to things that we get excited about. So we'll see.
Oh, that sounds exciting. And Dan, where can we find you and what do you got coming up on Halloweenies?
Just on Instagram these days, DW Caffrey. And for Halloweenies, we are 2 months into our Universal Monster season. We just finished The Wolfman, which I believe is up at this point. We're actually having our scheduling meeting tomorrow to discuss which monster is next. Yeah, who knows? I don't know if will it be, we're going to keep it famous and iconic, go with Frankenstein right away, go with Bride, go to it won't be Creature. Creature's going to be in the summer, but yeah.
Okay,
yeah, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, we're really enjoying the season. It's a nice departure for us from the big marathon slasher seasons and just a different time and era. So it's been a fun time so far.
Well, it is going to be March. Does the leprechaun count as a universal monster?
I feel like that was probably like CBS Pictures or something. Let me see who made the leprechaun.
Hey.
I think that was the first movie I can remember watching when it came out, and being a kid and being like, "This movie is not good." Like,
I'd actually never seen any of them. Trimark. They were Trimark.
Trimark. Okay, so not Universal. Well,
yeah,
sorry.
I've not watched any leprechaun movies yet.
I haven't seen any either.
But I've heard that, Julie. I'm always like, are they fun? Everyone's like, no, they suck.
Yeah, we're doing it for Horror Movie Survival Guide for St. Patrick's Day, and I haven't seen it since it came out in the theater, and so we'll see if I've changed my opinion on the film.
Well, we will all check that episode out also, and maybe I'll just watch it along with you. You can find me at Jen Ferratu and can find me co-hosting. Rachel and I have been talking about Charles Bronson a lot on the Girls on the Boys. We don't have any boys content coming up, but we just planned out a lot of really fun stuff. And we're going to have some familiar faces joining us for that. Also, a lot of fun boys content. You can also find me co-hosting the Murder Made Fiction podcast, which I just spent the last month geeking out about survival cannibalism. I'm probably the most excited to talk about that. Anyway, I just have this weird, obscure fascination with it. But next month we are talking about Australian horror with like Wolf Creek and the Snowtown murder. So it's about to get real, real dark. And then on the Lady Killers, we just finished Couples Who Kill, and we are about to cover Possession and The Ring, and a lot of really fun stuff coming up there, which I'm blanking on right now. Oh, and Freaky. We just talked about Freaky too, so that was really fun. But yeah, follow me at Jen Ferratu and I'll post it all. And for the Losers Club this month, we are going in exactly the opposite direction from Elevation with The Monkey. Dan and I talked a lot about bananas on our main feed review. And Julia, you got to debut a new type of episode. Sometimes they come back to talk in depth about the film. I am really excited to listen to that. And that's going to be available on Patreon. And we're also covering King's new short story, The Extra Hour, in a Patreon exclusive episode of The Archives. And our next book episode after this is going to be The Institute. So I'm excited for that. But that's all for this episode. We are going to float up into the clouds and light our fireworks. Okay, side note, I was also like, won't that firework burn him? Won't that hurt?
Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. Yeah, it's beautiful.
I know. And I was like, okay, he's exploding himself, or is he just doing a light show before?
I thought it was like maybe it's like a sparkler.
He didn't let it go, right? And then
okay, yes, that's what happened. He lit it. And let
so
it
he
go.
continues to
Yeah.
ascend.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So not burned alive.
That was not the read that I got, but it's your interpretation is whatever you want it to be.
Maybe that's where our horror comes from. Oh, all right. Let's sign off. We'll be seeing you over long days and pleasant nights.
I got some hot friends. God, I got some hot friends. I got some hot friends.
You've made it to the end of another Bloody Disgusting podcast. Congratulations. If you like our programming, consider searching for other Bloody Disgusting podcasts, such as Creepy, Horror Queers, The Boo Crew, SCP Archives, Nightlight, Margaret's Garden, and more.